Welcome, everyone. We are the Super Monkey Fighters. I am Loki, here with Monkey Feathers and Papa Nugget. And we are going to do our movie podcast, What Would You Change? This time, what's this, the 25th anniversary of Scream. We're going back to the pivotal 90s horror film. If you're not sure what this is, it's a year after the murder of her mother. A teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game. It was written by Kevin Williamson, directed by Wes Craven. Stars Neve Campbell, David Arquette. Roger Jackson is the phone voice, so that was a movie trick. It wasn't an actual phone or voice modulator. Skeet Ulrich, who probably has the better name than any character he's ever played in his real life name. So, Rose McGowan is in this. Matthew Lillard is in it. Jamie Kennedy. Liev Schreiber is in some news footage, kind of setting up sequels later on, potentially. Scream. What'd you guys think?
It's funny because, Nugget talks about, oh, I'm not really a big horror fan. And I'm like, horror movies. Give me horror movies. They have to, I don't even care if they're bad or not. They could just be the super cheesy, worst horror movies. And I'm just like, no horror movies. I need them.
Yeah, maybe.
But,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll start out and say, of course, that I really do like this film. I think, ironically, this is my favorite horror movie, which is funny because that's the thing that they keep asking in the movie is, what's your favorite horror movie? And this would be mine. Because I think that this movie helped revitalize the horror genre, because I think, I know that some people might argue and start listing off some other good horror movies, but I think the 80s were kind of where horror really had its stride, because you had Halloween and Friday the 13th, and you had A Nightmare on Elm Street, and even Chucky. But then you had, kind of the lull of, you knew what to expect. And so with this one, the fact that they brought horror movies into the horror movie, where it was referencing Halloween even in this movie,
yeah.
or horror movie tropes of, I love the fact...
The rules.
Yeah,
rules.
The horror movie rules, or even Sidney Prescott, where she gets a phone call from the killer and she says, I hate horror movies because it's always about some dumb woman, blonde, whatever, who should be running out the front door instead of up the stairs, but then she ends up doing just that,
doing
running
exactly
from the
that,
killer.
because
And so the fact that this was self-referential of horror movies and their tropes and things like that, I think it did help to bring more to a horror genre instead of just the same old, same old. Because once this movie came out, then you got other movies that started trying to do the same thing of, we're going to start referencing horror movies, and we're going to start referencing tropes and things like that. So I did like that as being one of the biggest things that it did, I think, help revitalize the horror movie genre.
I mean, yeah, there was a slew of movies after this that just followed suit. Either, kind of being send-ups or trying to do horror in a new way, but it was always kind of, they follow the same formula no matter what. Or there was the new formula of not doing those things, doing the opposite. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to think of, like, right after this, like, The Faculty and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it's just like, it seemed like they just started flooding out because it was popular. Same way that action movies did that, like, right after The Matrix. I mean, they redefined kind of how that genre operated for a while, and that's what Scream was in the 90s, the same way that, Halloween was in late 70s, early 80s. Like, they redefined those kinds of things, because even before that you had zombie movies in the 60s and 70s, and then before that you had the classic monsters with Frankenstein and Wolfman and the Mummy and those kinds of things, all the classic Universal monsters. Like, you kind of go through those phases with movies, and so I think this worked when it came out because of how the genre had gotten kind of tired and then kind of fallen off for a little bit. It was kind of a joke of itself, but not realizing it. So
Yeah.
when this came out, I absolutely loved it because of all of those things. Like even in making fun of itself and in fun of its genre by the people who kind of made the genre, it still it still did its genre well. Like, it was still a good scary movie. So
you have Wes Craven, who directed, and I don't know if he wrote it, but A Nightmare on Elm Street, where that was his creation, and he does, start referencing or talking about his own work. And so that's something that's interesting as well.
He also does have a cameo in it as
Freddy
the
Krueger.
janitor, as Freddy Krueger, the janitor, or whatever his name was.
He looks like Freddy Krueger, and maybe he's not.
I've got likes from when I first saw it, when it first came out, and this time around, I don't know, it's once you know kind of a thing, and so it was just more. To me, it was bringing it back fresh into my mind, and I didn't enjoy it this time around, and not to say that I don't enjoy the film, but this specific viewing was less than ideal for me. This was more of a chore to get through than I wanted it to be. So.
And that's what I find so interesting, is because I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, but every single time I'm just like, I like this movie, and I will keep watching this movie. And granted, if I watched it 100 times in a row, yeah, I'd be sick of it. But, watching it maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 or 3 years, yeah, I would still enjoy every viewing of it that I watched.
Biggest thing that I like with it is the opening scene with Drew Barrymore, where that's kind of the beginning of how it's subverting its genre, right? You take the big actor and kill them off in the first scene, and it sets the tone that this is going to be completely different, and it helps pull you into that world where you're just like, oh, okay, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like, the person you would expect to have plot armor doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it became apparent that, okay, you're going to tell these stories, and now we know who the actual main character is, and you just follow that same suit. Like, you don't get any different with that, right? Like, oh, we've subverted it by killing off the big movie star before in the opening sequence, but now here's just your normal horror movie story that this is the main character, she's got plot armor, she's, so they just follow suit with that. So not necessarily a bad thing, but
you do expect the fact that you have someone like Drew Barrymore, who's had some movies done in the past, of course, before this movie, and you expect, oh, she's the main character, and then for them to just kill her off and say, oh, no, she's not she doesn't get to live. Yep. It's kind of the shock of it, where you're expecting one thing, and then they're just like, haha, nope, and take you on a different route. So
going back to the opening scene, I mean, even if you haven't seen the film, or you have and just aren't into it like me, like everyone like at least knows about the scene, or like it's memorable. So I think it stands out, and I think I mean, you can call it iconic or whatever, but I think it stands out in people's mind. And so I mean, I think that's a positive for the film, regardless, for having just one part of it stand out so much, or at least being unique enough and to kind of make a lasting impression. So I will give it that. I mean, when watching through it this time, like I would say that I enjoyed it more than some of the other ones we've watched, like Halloween, Friday the 13th. Like, I would say, like, it could keep my attention much better. And it wasn't as, like, I didn't have to push myself to, like, just keep watching it. At least there was enough kind of suspense or kind of just thriller-ish emotions going on that it kept me interested. And at least want to keep watching it.
One of the things that it's a mixed bag for me, but it is good overall, I think, is Matthew Lillard. Most people would know him as Shaggy. His ridiculous, over the top persona, it fits the character really well, but it's also, I don't think it's as much of a character as they were just like, oh, you do this, just be this in the movie.
It seemed like a little much to me.
Almost
to the point
really,
where I'm like, where it starts pulling you out a little bit.
Yeah.
I felt like, yeah. And it seemed like a typecast as like, okay, yeah, this is you. So.
Well, and it's the when every time he sticks out his tongue, that's where it pulls me out. It's just like I got to do something crazy and do that. But it's really interesting to have seen him throughout the years, because I'm trying to think of when SLC Punk came out. I think it was after this, but just before this, he was in Hackers and that kind of stuff, where he was the crazy hair, wild, dude. So, but to see kind of the evolution as he's popped up in things throughout the years, even after, after Scooby-Doo and as an adult and other things, this feels very much like the learning experience. Like, I don't know how to act. I'm not really getting a lot of direction. I don't really have a lot of talent. And I feel that with most of the actors in this. And so they're falling back on things that they think you would do as an actor. So that's like him sticking his tongue out, or Skeet Ulrich, or just how he, like, the way that he uses his mouth when he talks is really weird. Like, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like I need to be a character, so I need to be expressive with how I talk and things. And it feels off. It feels like acting class less than it does like actors. And so
it's also good to understand, though, that this probably was maybe they had one or two movies before this, like Matthew Lillard or even Skeet Ulrich, but it kind of was, one of their first films.
Well,
so,
and
it does make sense that
it's a mixed bag. Overall, I really do like the actors in it and the characters in it, but they do feel a lot more like they're playing a part rather than they are that person. And that's, even with, Jamie Kennedy, not that he's, amazing or anything, but he plays the part of the nerdy movie kid who, everybody kind of makes fun of, but is also their friends. And he does that over the top, but it fits what the movie is and what's going on. And so, he, most of the characters are plot devices or are utilized to kind of progress things forward. And so it's like, oh, you play this role and you play this role, but that's the point of the movie, right? And so it's tough to dislike that when that's what they're going for, right? These are the archetypes that you fit into, so this is what we're going to do. And some of them we're going to subvert, some of them we're going to utilize because that's how we're going to do it. It's more like, I understand why people have been making fun of a lot of this movie for a long time. Like the Scary Movie that came out was specifically making fun of Scream. And I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those kinds of things. But the way that Scary Movie makes fun of Dewey, Officer Dewey, it's like, it's not really making, like, they went way over the top with it, but it's like, man, just recreate the same scenes. And you're making fun of it just as, it makes fun of itself enough in the movie to where when he comes running out in his underwear and he's got the gun and he's like, after the phone call and he picks up the phone, hello. It's just like, it's a stupid, ridiculous thing. And it pulled me out.
So I loved the fact that they had two killers in this movie. It was something that was new. And the fact that it also helped potentially create alibis for other characters. Because when you're only expecting one killer, then when people are saying, oh, I was with this person the whole night. Okay, well, that person's now out because their alibis with someone else. And so it kind of starts, it kind of keeps you guessing on who the killer is because you're only expecting one killer. And so I liked, even in ways like the foreshadowing of comments that are being made by characters, because Skeet Ulrich's character, Billy Loomis, when they're sitting, I guess it's on a fountain or a bench or something. I don't quite remember the scene, but they're talking about the two students getting murdered in the beginning of the film. And Matthew Lillard's like, well, basically complaining that someone's saying he killed the people. And Billy Loomis said, no one said you did kill them. And just the look he gives almost is like, well, I was the one that killed them, so don't worry about it. And even the scene with Sidney Prescott and Billy Loomis right before they go upstairs to, sleep together. Billy Loomis comes in and he kind of gives like eyebrow raises, like, "Oh yeah, I killed your girlfriend," and it just some of like the foreshadowing in the conversations. It did help to bring in alibis, because when Billy Loomis gets arrested, well, Matthew Lillard calls Sidney to kind of, you got the wrong guy. So a lot of things like that. It helped make a stronger killer in a logical way, because you don't know who the killer is because you're only expecting one, and then when it's revealed as two, things start to make sense of how things could happen, how different kills could be done by one of the killers or the other. And so that was something that I really liked.
I think that's why the movie works really well and pulls your interest in, is because they do really well within that foreshadowing, and like you kind of suspect everybody because they do that. Like, I mean, even Henry Winkler's the principal. Like, there's students running around with a ghost face mask on, scaring all the kids in the school, and so he's chastising some kids, and he's swinging around a pair of scissors, and it's like sword noises. But they build that up as if, oh, maybe he's the killer, and they do that with Dewey a couple of times. They do that with a lot of different people as you're going throughout, and so you're just like, it helps throw off the scent. It's the red herring that throws you off of the fact that it's pretty obvious that her boyfriend's the killer, just based on how he acts the entire time. But then they throw in the, oh, he's the other thing. And so it's like, I mean, that's kind of the twist with it, is that, there's another killer. But if it's painful to watch all of his interactions with her, because you're just like, man, everybody, they're all talking about how he's just Mr. Perfect, and maybe there's got to be a problem with him. It's like, there's obviously a problem with this guy. Like, this is not the, like, brooding, this is psychopath, I'm going to murder you, I'm, like, all across the board the entire time, but they give you enough doubt that it's not him that, the twist kind of works, or it keeps you going, because you're like, well, it's him, or maybe it's somebody else, and but it is, I think that's why it works the first time, and it's less going forward. And so
it's unfortunate, because they made really smart choices with the killers, and then they did really dumb choices with the killers. And what I mean by that is the logistics of what they're doing, because with Sidney, where our main goal is to kill her, but we're going to toy with her and play with her for no apparent reason. And then at the big climax of the end, we'll still kind of toy and play with her and give her the opportunity to run away and survive. Or when she runs into the bathroom after Billy Loomis and that confrontation with him, the killer's just waiting in the bathroom stall for her to just walk in. But how does he know that she's going to walk in?
Well, and was that really the killer? Was that one of the kids running around?
And that's true. They could have just been playing a joke. But even then, that's still the idea that you're led to believe that was the killer aiming to do something to her. Which is still strange, because if she ran out to one of the teachers that was walking down the hall and said, hey, there's a killer there's a killer in the bathroom.
I mean, that's my big problem with this movie kind of trying to be a send up, or a let's change things, let's raise the bar in horror movies. If anybody just ever called the police, like, I mean, especially in the opening sequence, I'm 2 seconds away from calling the cops. This guy's already threatened you by the time she first says that, and it's just like,
I will say this though, Sidney Prescott, when the killer like attacks her in her home and she finds that the phone line is down, she types on her computer to call the police, and I'm like, that's brilliant. Instead of just crying.
Don't know how she did that in 1996.
I know. However that worked, I don't know either. But
Speech
what I'm
to
saying
text.
what I'm saying though is the fact that instead of just crying and freaking out that the phone line's dead, she thinks of another way to get a hold of the police.
Yeah.
So that's a smart thing that she did. But, just going back to the killers themselves, stalking Sidney in the store.
Well, or
why?
Their plan to be the lone survivors, right? They're going to stab each other, but not mortally wound each other. And then they'll be the ones that survive. But they do that all before they've killed everyone. Like,
finish the plan.
And the fact that Matthew Lillard's character, Stu, he gets stabbed a little too hard, and so he's basically bleeding out. Yeah, it's not a smart decision. Or even the fact that after Sidney and Billy sleep together and she's still having a little bit of doubts about him, and the killer comes in and stabs Billy, and you're left to think that Billy's dead. How did they get the corn syrup on him for the fake blood? And how? Because he was naked probably 2 seconds beforehand. She would have seen something. So it's just that's my biggest, the one dislike that I didn't like about this film was you had really smart choices with the killers, but then you made illogical choices in regards to what they did and how they did it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is unfortunate, because if you continue making smart choices with the killers, you wouldn't have someone like me who's picking it apart.
Well, and I mean, that's the way that I think a lot of bad horror movies are made, is they don't think through. They think through we need to have this thing happen rather than this makes sense. And that's where I think the good ones really stand out, or good thrillers or those kinds of things, is you actually stop and think about what's going to happen and make it work, rather than, oh yeah, these guys have actually been pretty clever in how they've been doing this, but really they're not. It's just everybody else is dumber than they are. Like, the cops in this town are really just bad. Like, even when they give her a police escort, it's like, it's Dewey, who's, as much as he's trying to make himself seem like a competent person, it's very obvious that he's not, and that everybody knows that. And so that's what's going on with that whole situation. But it's like, he doesn't stay with them. They don't stick together in groups. They just follow and do all the same stupid things. And so
the fact that he shows up to a party and then leaves with Gale Weathers to go,
or the fact that he brings Gale Weathers over knowing full well the history between characters and those kinds of things. Like, we need to have, these are the characters we have in the movie, so let's figure out ways of putting them together rather than, figure out ways that characters would actually interact. And so those are a lot of the dislikes that I would have as well, is just that things don't seem to happen in ways that make sense. They happen for horror movie sake, right? There's things that I like and dislike about all the characters, like Stu, Matthew Lillard's character, as he's bleeding out and he's talking on the phone to her, and he's like, "Did you really call the cops?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh man, my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." Like, that's a really interesting delivery, I'll say. I think it's hilarious and I like it, but I don't think I don't know what the intent, like, but it's not like that's good acting. That's just over the top ridiculousness. Like, find somebody who can be wild and crazy and put them in that role, sort of a thing. And then there's also lines that come out where you're just like, man, that's dumb, or that's bad. Or you try to do the action hero line, Courteney Cox tries to have it at the end, where it's like, guess I had the safety on that time. And it's like, you're a badass now when you were an idiot 2 seconds ago. Like, it's,
And let's talk about how in the van with the dead camera guy on top, she's moving forward, and then like he slides, or like it's backwards, like he slides forward, but like physics doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's moving backwards and then she stops and he slides forwards.
Oh, okay. So that's how that works.
Yeah.
right? That's the scene.
I think so.
She's reversing it,
Yeah.
and when she stops, he moves.
He slides
backwards.
forward.
He doesn't continue his.
Yeah.
And then the cameraman that she's been a bitch to the whole time, like as he's dead on her, in the way, she's like, "I'm sorry, but can you get the hell out of my way?" It's just like, even in death, you can't treat the guy decently. Like, come on. And that's another like mixed bag like dislike with the killer. I really like that the killer is stupid and goofy. Like going back to the old, like Jason, he's always everywhere. He only ever walks, but somehow he catches people who are running away from him, those kinds of things. This killer is hit by doors. He's whacked by fridges. They throw beers at him. He falls down. He stumbles around a lot.
Because it's basically a high school student. That's something that I think that they did really smart with this, is they didn't just change a high school student and made him into a god.
Yeah.
It was like he can barely see in a mask, so yeah, he's gonna stumble over something, or he's gonna easily get hit by a door if someone slams a door in his face or whatever. So it's a good choice because, as I've talked about in other horror movie reviews, when you make a killer who's unkillable, then there's no stake involved.
Yeah.
But with this, it's like, no, each Scream movie, you get new killers because the people die. They get shot, they get stabbed, or whatever, they die. And so it's a really smart choice because it brings it back into the real world, that these are just high school students that decided for, different reasons, different motives, whichever one you want to believe in the film, they decide to go on a killing spree. And so it's a realistic aspect of it.
So transitioning into things we would change, there is a theory that I've heard, and I'm pulling this out of my memory, that there were supposed to be 3 killers, and the third one was Dewey, but that he changed his mind, and I think that would have been a thing that would have been an interesting area to explore with it. That because he goes off with Gail, he was supposed to go off and kill her, but she's seducing him, and he falls in love with her and changes his mind, and so he goes back to try and stop them. But their plan all along was to kill him as well. So I think that would lend to Stu being stabbed a little too hard. He's starting to realize that, I'm going to die because, Billy really is a killer, and his plan all along was to kill everybody except himself. So I think that would have added a lot to it. It's not my change, but it's an interesting theory that I've heard about.
I don't know how much you guys know about the other 2 movies, but the third movie, it ties in the first 2 movies into this killer's motive, because the killer is her half-brother, and he started recruiting people he recruited Billy because he knew that Billy's dad was cheating with Sidney and Roman, who's her half-brother, mom, and it just caused chaos throughout the whole thing. But that could be an interesting thing to have changed if it was Dewey, because if he survived and then by the third movie you found out that he was the puppet master throughout the whole thing, that could have been an interesting choice to have made. Because Dewey's I guess reaction or lack of reaction to his sister's death would make a lot more sense, because he was nonchalant about it throughout the other, even in this movie.
But in this one, I don't think he knew that she died. Yeah, he didn't come across her. So
there was not much emotion in the other 2 movies, so it could make some sense as to why that there was no emotion, because he was one of the killers. But I think it could have been an interesting thing to either explore or change if you had Dewey be a third killer, or at least the puppet master throughout the 3 movies themselves.
The things that I would change, like, for me, it's tough if you're trying to subvert a film, but then you end up just doing the same things that the genre does, right? like they do a really good job of kind of subverting that, but they don't differentiate themselves. Like it's just like we're going to do the same thing but better, and so we're going to change a couple of things to make it really stand out. And the way I've been trying to frame it in my mind and think about it is just like, if you bully a bully, you're still a bully. And so if you're trying to subvert the horror genre by making a horror movie, you're still making a horror movie. Like if you're trying to make fun of bad horror movies, you're still making a bad horror movie. I think we're trying to make horror movies good again, and they did that. And so just thinking of it that way, I think more fits. But I think I think I would have just dramatically changed most everything. Like if you're going to subvert it, like just continue to do that. Like, oh, here's the new person that we're going to be following. Oh, guess what? She's dead too. Oh, hey, guess what? The next person's dead. Like the killer is just ruthlessly efficient. Nobody ever finds out who they are. And, you're left at the end of the film going like, I don't know what to think. Like it could have been any one of these people rather than you kind of tie it up in a bow, like, and just,
but if there were no resolution, you would be like, okay, what did I just watch? Why did I just spend my entire time watching this?
It's one of those things where it's like for me to make a movie that I would enjoy, most people probably wouldn't, and that's very apparent in my mind with a lot of things, and so there's not a whole lot I would change. I think this does horror movies justice. I think this kind of revitalized a dead genre that then just continued to cannibalize itself as it went. So
my change just comes back down to the two killers. You've made smart choices with them, continue to make smart choices and logical choices. Instead of just doing it for a horror's sake, do it in a realistic manner.
Or it's
so that you're more consistent, but that you're more likely to believe it instead of you see it and wonder, well, how are you here? Why are you here? Why are you doing these things? Because it's a smart movie with some dumb choices. And that's what I think is unfortunate. And so that would be what I would change, is just make it more consistent in the choices that they make throughout.
To me, it doesn't make sense, like their whole reasoning as to why they chose her. Like, oh, your mother was a whore, so we're going to murder you.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, Billy had a actual motive.
That kind of came out.
His dad was sleeping with Sidney's mom, and it broke up his parents to where his mom left. And I imagine his mom left and his dad was abusive and beat Billy, and so it left him in a miserable life. And so, it's one of those, it might not be a strong motive, but that's also kind of the point that they kind of hammer home, is that they don't need a motive.
Yeah, their motive is that we don't need a motive, but
some
it's
killers
still like,
don't have motives.
Yeah.
So.
I like Stu's
even though
motive,
I think
peer pressure.
Yeah.
I'm very impressionable. No, I mean, it is kind of tough with that, where it's like, yeah, why is all of this happening? And then you get to the end of it and you're just kind of like, that's dumb. Like, you're punishing other people because of, like, because this thing is like, okay, then what about Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend? Like, they were just going to watch some movies. Like, why were they the first target in a year?
Or the principal. Well, okay, hold on. Yeah. Because this is what I'll say, because I just barely remembered this. The reason why they killed other people was to set up the dad as a killer going on a murderous rampage on the year anniversary of his wife's death. So that was the reasoning behind that.
That's not a very strong.
But
it's not. It's not. But
he's still killing people who have absolutely nothing to do with any of that. Like,
and but that doesn't matter. It's more of, he just snapped one day and decided he wanted to kill people, and those just happened to be the people that he ended up killing. And again, I'm not saying like that's I'm not saying it's not.
Still weak.
What I'm saying though is that was the reasoning behind killing all these different people, was to frame the father.
Yeah, I would have stuck with, there is no reason. Just, I feel like killing. There we go.
Yeah.
think we'll wrap it up there. Leave comments down below, and I'm going to sign this one off on I'll be right back.
And this is where we kill you off.
Hopefully. I don't want to come back for a sequel.